Right, yeah.
Voila, that's what they call it. Voila.
Hey everybody, welcome to In the Can. I'm Jeffrey Hansen. Terry Burden will be on soon. We are smack dab in the middle of the first full week of the Sundance Film Festival. We're talking about a film that is already got a lot of legs going with it, and we'll talk a little bit about why that is. The film is called Viva, and director and filmmaker Patty Bernock is here.
Hello.
Hello, welcome.
Delighted to be here.
And super excited. This film, it's such a beautiful palette that and a beautiful setting. Why don't, before we start talking about your process, let's talk a little bit about the film itself. What is it about?
Well, Viva is a film about a young man, Jesus, who hasn't found his voice in life, and he's a little bit of adrift in his life, and he's used by a lot of the people who are around him, and hasn't got a family. His mother's dead and his father hasn't been in his life. And he works as a hairdresser on the margins of a drag show in Havana. And he begins to get some sort of ambition to perform, and he tries it out. And he feels there's something in that he's able to express himself in some way in this world, even though he's not perfect when he starts and it's not great. But suddenly, out of the blue, his father arrives back into his life and causes havoc. So it's about how they can resolve that relationship and how he can be true to himself and find his own voice in life.
Right. It's interesting because this character, Jesus, he's got a couple of kind of parental figures in his life. He's got the one parental figure on kind of the drag scene, who is very supportive, trying to talk him into even performing, and then all of a sudden Dad comes into the picture, and he's got a different attitude toward this whole scene, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, no, there's a huge conflict between the two of those, and Mom is very much a sort of, even though she's kind of quite hard-ass in many ways, she's nurturing, and she sort of sees promise in Jesus, and she wants to sort of, maybe she sees something of herself in him as well, and she wants to bring him along,
It's such a sweet character, too. You instantly grab onto this character and root for this character. And the film itself is actually, this is kind of rare, but you have actually already premiered at Telluride.
Yeah, we showed it at Telluride, and we just, it was... In fact, when I showed it in Telluride, nobody had seen it at all anywhere. I hadn't even had a cast and crew screening at that stage.
Really? So that was the first time it was ever
absolutely the first screening. And it just got the film is very emotionally forthright. It's strong. There's laughs and tears in it, and it isn't frightened to express those things, and the audience went with that. So it was a huge thrill for me to see that and to see that the film worked. And then arising out of that, we got invited to show in the Spotlight section in Sundance, which was fantastic as well, because to be able to play in those two wonderful festivals is, it's a dream come true for a filmmaker.
Do you imagine that your reception here is going to be any different? I mean, the festivals are the same and different in many ways, but...
Well, you never know, and that's the whole thing about, particularly in the early life of a film, a certain magic has to happen in the room, people, they might like it. Do they love it? I don't know. We've got to wait and see what happens today. And so, I'm pretty... I like the film myself, and I like showing it, and I feel we've made a good film, so I'm hopeful that they like it. But until they do, I can't.
Well, at least that initial nervousness is out. You've already run this race a little bit.
We have,
so maybe you can enjoy the experience a little bit more this way. It also, one thing that's kind of amazing is we recently learned that the film was up for consideration for the Oscar for Best Foreign Film. Every country has a submission. Ireland chose this one.
Yeah, Ireland chose it, and which was unusual because it's a Spanish language film, but it's an Irish production, Irish writer, Irish financed, Irish producers, Irish director, but it's shot in Cuba. But we sort of entered into that, and then it sort of got into the shortlist, which is the final 9. Sorry, it becomes 9, and then we just missed out on the last stage, which was obviously a big disappointment. But there's some great films there.
You got a lot of support in that disappointment. I've been reading some articles about how a lot of people felt this film really deserved to be in that final.
I think when you get into that stage, there's 9 people on the stage. I was on a panel of them, and all the directors were there. And you look around and say, well, none of these people are fools. They're all good filmmakers, and we all deserve to find our place in the sun one day. So hopefully, I'll get back into some sort of space where you can have a moment.
What got you interested in this story? I mean, first of all, it's such an exotic story, right?
Well, first of all, I fell in love. I went to see a drag show in Cuba a long time ago, and I fell in love with, there's a particular kind of raw emotional power in some of the Cuban and maybe Latin drag performers, and there was something that just like, you know, I had chanced upon the show, and I didn't expect to be that entertained or interested in that world, and suddenly this performer came on and just completely moved me, and I found it very powerfully and emotionally, it just grabbed me and shook me. And I said, okay, I've got to find out about this world. And so for a good few years, I went back and researched it a little bit. Then I got involved with an Irish writer called Mark O'Halloran, and who's a wonderful writer. And we began researching a story, a father-son story that I thought might be an interesting way into this world. And so it sort of was a long time in coming, but it was driven always by a knowledge of saying, I think there's an experience, an emotional experience here that I have felt, and I want to capture it and show it to other people and let them in on this wonderful world.
Well, we're going to show some people a little bit of it right now. Let's take a look at Viva. It's such an interesting way to end that clip. You know, why is this island so addicted to drama? When you stop to think about the political and also the cultural, everything going on together. I'm just curious as to how, I just as an American who, and we talked a little bit about this before. Cuba is starting to open up in the American mindset, right? Our relationship is going to change with this part of our history, this beautiful country. I would not have imagined that this kind of scene would existed in a Castro regime, and yet it does.
Well, I suppose, for a long time, being gay in Cuba was really was incredibly tough. I mean, very, very tough. And in the last number of years, that's loosened up a bit, and it's opened up. And in fact, the state has apologized for treating people, gay people, in that way. But there was always pockets of places, and it's inevitable, where people congregate in clubs and clandestine things, and in a way they become more important than just a world for the gay community or whatever. It's maybe they're places in general that are a little bit underground, and people can find a space. And there was when I first went and first investigated in these places, there was an excitement about it, because you had to make a phone call or to find out, is there a show on tonight, and you'd be in somebody's back garden.
Is there a special knock on the door or anything like that?
It was like it was another thing that I found fascinating about it. You'd go through this house into some backyard, and it was very ordinary, but they put a red sheet up against the back wall and one light, and it was transformed into a theatre and a world of dreams and magic out of nothing. And that's such an exciting thing. And I kept looking around and saying, how can they do this and make me feel this? And it's like a curtain and a light. It's nothing, but they're bringing me somewhere and transporting me into something else.
Well, it's beautifully shot. It's a visual feast, and I can't imagine shooting in Cuba was a horrible experience either.
It wasn't, and we sort of like it's a low budget film. We shot in 22 days, so we sort of had limitations, and we said, okay, let's let those limitations inform the aesthetic. So we shot a lot on the streets and did it in a way where we didn't try and control crowds. We did long takes walking through places and got a real atmosphere of the life on the streets. And luckily, Cuban people have this thing where they just didn't care. And they didn't look at the camera, and they went about their own thing and let us do our thing.
It's extraordinary.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Well, again, you've already shown a Telluride, but your official Park City premiere happens today.
Yeah, it's today in the Library Theatre at noon.
And of course, plays throughout the festival. Do not miss this one. This is Viva. This is going to be one of those films that is going to be remembered. Patty, thank you for being here. Good luck with the film. We'll have more in the can after this. Don't go away.